Hey everyone, in this video here I actually wanted to do a little bit of a base tour and showcase a project that I've been working on ever since the release of the 5.0 update with No Man's Sky. I ended up getting pretty big motivation to do this project with all of the new volumetrics and just how beautiful these new planets are. This planet in particular actually motivated me to recreate the entirety of Shadow Moses Island here. That's actually what we're going to be taking a look at here. So, if we actually start with this part here, this is actually going to be the cavern. This is the docks section. First area where Snake would infiltrate. This whole area is hollowed out because normally this would be completely filled in with water. Snake would infiltrate from here via submarine, and then he'd be entering up here for the stairs. So the whole idea behind this project is to try to make this entire project as one-to-one as possible with Metal Gear Solid 1, and with some sprinkles of Metal Gear Solid 4 in there as well. As you can see, I named it the Nuclear Weapons Disposal Facility there. So, if we take a look here, we have this area where normally this would be completely submerged in water down here. We have this little rusty barrel, and there'd be a ration right back here, right next to this piping. So, normally, for the most part, I don't really put down item placements in the area. I've only done it in very specific spots. So if we just come up the stairs here, this is normally where we would start, right behind this big box here. So you can see we have this piping coming out of the box which goes all the way down to that part of the floor. On this side of the building, or on the box I should say, we have these barrels here which would normally block Snake from walking through that side. So we would walk through the piping. I did raise this a little bit, since you'd normally crawl through this in MGS1. Obviously you can't really crawl in No Man's Sky, so I decided to just raise that up a little bit. So coming into this room here, we have the main part of the docks here, which is a very simple, pretty small room with a couple boxes in the middle. We come over here. We have these railings here for the docks with this little gap right in the center, which I believe normally would have a chain connecting the two railings. Then if we come over to the side, we have this box here with some piping coming off of the side, coiling down and going all the way down into the stairs on this side, which normally in MGS1 this part is inaccessible. We also have another item right back here behind the box. And you can see even the lighting around this area is like I placed them to try to be as accurate as possible to MGS1, so you'd have these little lights right here at the top of the walls here. You can see it goes all the way down. Everything all hollowed out down there. So in this room we have these big crates, these 4 crates here. These are actually slightly different from how they are in MGS1, because I believe in that game these are actually a 2x3, whereas I've made these a 3x3 in No Man's Sky, so they're slightly bigger, but for the most part, in terms of how they're actually laid out and designed, they're pretty accurate. So we have these little boxes here on the side here, and if we come over to these boxes, you'll see that everything here is designed pretty clearly. You can see this section completely missing on this part here. You have this little corner missing over on that one. This one's missing that whole section, and this as well. And then over to this wall, you'll have these little boxes here on this side. So you'll notice that we have this little wall that kind of juts out a little bit, narrowing that hallway a bit. And then over here, we actually have the forklift. So of course there's no forklift vehicle in No Man's Sky, so I kind of had to get a little bit creative with this, so I just kind of attached a couple boxes together, some white boxes, and then I used these little black bars here to kind of, you know, show off the actual forks at the bottom of the lift, or the vehicle rather. And then we have this window here at the top, on the front, and then one on the top right here. So you can get the general idea that this is a forklift, and of course it's in the right spot. And then now we have the elevator. We got the little red light on that side, and obviously in No Man's Sky we don't really have any moving platforms, so you can't really accurately do an elevator, so instead I decided to use some short-range teleporters. But yeah, that pretty much is the docks in its entirety. So now we're going to be going up the elevator and then taking a look at the helipad. So here we have the whole helipad, or well, the elevator structure here with all the bars. We have the red light on that side. And then now we have this large fence. This large fence that kind of blocks off this side of the building. And we have this box all the way over here right next to the elevator. So now here's the whole facility and in all of its glory. The tank hangar right here. And then of course we have the helipad. So I designed the H pattern here on the helipad. So one thing I was debating on when designing this was I was thinking I would probably put an actual landing pad underneath this so that people flying into this planet, coming to this facility, could just land here. But the problem that I ended up running into is that placing a landing pad under here actually deletes the decals, and it was kind of a pain to try to replace them again. So instead, I decided to put the actual landing pad over here. So if you come into this planet, you're going to be landing here, and then you'll get a good view of the facility from all the way back here. But as you can see, everything is pretty nicely lit. We have these 4 lights on each corner of the helipad here with these little plates, which I believe are supposed to be like vents on the helipad. All of the corners are kind of angled sharply, much like they would be in MGS1. So if I draw your attention over to this side, I of course shaped up the terrain to try to make it as close to MGS1 as possible. So you just walk up to this side, and then of course we have all these 4 box structures with these little smaller boxes on every other one. You just like walk right past them. These you can normally sneak behind as you have a guard or 2 patrolling over here. And this of course leads over to the stairs, which go up to the catwalk to the top of the tank hangar. So before we go over there, let's head over to this side of the facility, because we have these little storing rooms here. On this side we have this little corner that you can hide behind. And then right over here, this would be the room where you'd likely encounter your first security camera. And there it is. So of course we don't have any cameras, so I decided to use a robotic arm and then place a green light on top of it, since the cameras in MGS1 usually have those blinking green lights when they're in standby. But for the most part, this room is pretty accurate. So we have these little boxes on the side of the wall here, on this side here, and we have these plates, which in MGS1 these are sandbags. So these are all laid out just like those. And we have a sandbag on this one here. We have a cargo van right over there, which we'll take a look at shortly. But right over here we have these little boxes which kind of block your line of sight of this room. And then just have this door closed. I was debating on whether or not I'd want to model the interior of there, since from what I remember, I don't believe you go back in there in MGS1, but you can in MGS4. So currently now I've just kind of kept it closed. We of course have this door over here, which is also locked. And then we have these boxes right here, and then we have some lighting right here, where this would be one of the ventilation entrances into the tank hangar. So things are going to be a little bit hard to see now because we have a raging blizzard, but this is also the other thing where I mentioned sprinkles of MGS4. This is partly due to the planet. I felt like this planet was the perfect one to really engage a project like this, because it really gives off the feeling of the harshness of the Alaskan winter in Shadow Moses Island here. You don't really notice so much of the blizzardy weather in MGS1, but in MGS4, all the intermittent blizzards and snowstorms that happen from time to time really give it dramatic effect, and I feel like the new volumetrics and the graphical effects here really do it justice. So just taking a look at the cargo van, of course, I had to get a little bit creative with this. I was debating on whether or not I would just use an exocraft for this, but the exocrafts don't really look anything close to a modern-day cargo van. So I decided to use this little housing structure here, which does look like the front of a big van. It might be a little wide, but I was actually kind of proud of how this came out. We have some wheels on the bottom here, and then of course you can jump into the back of the cargo van. As you do. You have this little box here on the side, and you can hide right back here. Get a decent view of the helipad from here. And of course we have the front of the tank hangar. The front doors are slightly open, so this is a bit of a nod to MGS4. So this is how you're going to enter into the tank hangar. Since in MGS1 you actually don't ever go through this door, MGS4 that's how you enter. So we have a couple of these boxes here on this side, and there's a bunch of lighting on the ground which leads towards the tank hangar garage door. So if we head up to the catwalk over here, you'll see that we'll encounter the next security camera right up here, right in front of these stairs. Yeah, sorry, it's a little hard to see, but of course the stairs here designed very similarly. So if we come up to the catwalk, you see that we have this little pocket here. So just go into photo mode, just take a look at all of this here. You can see we have the entire top front section of Shadow Moses of the tank hangar designed. We have these glass encasing rooms with these spotlights, which would normally overlook the helipad. And I feel like it's a really nice aesthetic when you come here when the weather is clear and you have these very bright lights at the top of the facility. So of course if we make our way here, we have these two indents. You can normally hide back here, and then this would be the one that has the second vent that you can enter into the tank hangar from. We have a light right up there. And then on this side, this would be the other side of the catwalk. So this part, I'm still debating on how I'm going to fill this in, because normally this side is blocked off by these little white boxes going up this ramp here. But for the most part, even the top of this building is fairly accurate with how we have these little white box or vents which feed their way into the snowy terrain. So that pretty much takes care of the helipad here. So let's take a look at the tank hangar itself. See that the weather is finally clearing up. Probably get a better look at the cargo van here. But now, here we have the tank hangar. And you can see it's a fairly big room. Of course, one of the problems, unfortunately, with No Man's Sky, when it comes to like the game detecting whether or not you're inside of an interior, when you do large rooms like this, you end up suffering some of the outside weather entering into the building as well. Thankfully, in the tank hangar, it's not that much of a problem. You only really feel it in very specific spots, like right here in between the two tanks. For the most part, the building is spared from the outside weather. But I just want to draw your attention to these tanks here. Of course, we don't have any tanks in No Man's Sky, so I had to custom design these here. And I was pretty happy with how these ended up coming out. Of course, used the same technique for the wheels here for the tanks, and then had to design the actual cannons. So decided to use some green piping here for the cannon, and then all of these angled to make it look like a tank cannon up here. So I thought these came out pretty well. Of course, in terms of their orientation, we have this tank which is like slightly angled off towards this door here. And this tank here is normally incomplete. It doesn't have its tank cannon attached, where it actually has its cannon suspended in midair right here. And I used some little bars to show that it's being held up, suspended in midair, with the cannon right here. So overall, I just kind of like how this looked. We have these little boxes, these crates here. And then, of course, all of the rooms have been modeled. So we have this room here, which I believe this is the room where you'd first find your SOCOM suppressor, which would be right in the corner. I believe you'd normally have a guard just standing here sleeping. You can choke them out. But of course we have these crates here, set up the same way. So now let's make our way up to the top of the tank hangar. So you'll notice we'll have all this lighting here, light bars on the lower parts of the walls here, which is pretty much how they did it in MGS1 as well. They had a big light bar on the wall. So coming up the stairs, we're going to see the next security camera right up here. And then we have this room, which has a bunch of these lockers in the back and a couple crates. These green crates on this side as well. Then we have this pocket right here that you can hide behind. Now the catwalk detaches from the front wall, so it's more suspended in the air over here. And then we have this little section which juts out, and it gives you a good view of both the upper and lower section of the tank hangar. You can actually get a good view of the tanks from up here, as well as this cannon being suspended in midair. I believe normally this front section would just be attached by chains in MGS1. So we have this big open room here with some more crates. Another security camera right up here. And then we have another room. This is kind of like a little mini office room here. So we have a couple computers. And then you'll notice that in MGS1, a lot of these office rooms and a lot of these tables, they'll oftentimes have various papers and blueprints that are just kind of lying on top and overlapping each other. I did try to make that as one-to-one as possible as well. Every minute detail I tried to cover here throughout the space. So you'll notice that a lot of these posters here are laid out very similarly to how they would be in MGS1 as well. So we have these little mini computers with these little servers right next to them. More papers here, and then we have these little devices on the wall. And I believe in MGS1 these are normally bookshelves. You don't really have bookshelves in this game, so I decided to use these filing cabinets. And then we have another security camera right here in this corner. And this would actually be where Snake would infiltrate if you came in through the upper vent on the outside catwalk. So I'm actually kind of happy with how this came out, because normally the ladders in No Man's Sky, you can't really use them without them being attached to cuboid rooms. So I found this little glowing shelf item, which if you actually attach them together, it actually does make them look like large ladders, which is pretty accurate to how MGS1's ladders are. They're typically about this wide. They're pretty big ladders. So we have these ladders are going all the way up here, and I put this little bar going across the ceiling here to kind of make it look like there's a ventilation shaft up there. So you'd normally infiltrate through this part here. You'd be greeted by that security camera on the right, and you have this box here that you can hide behind on this side. And that's pretty much the entirety of the first floor of the tank hangar. So I've of course modeled both the first floor and second floor basements. So we'll come in through the elevator right here. So on the walls I've decided to mark down where each teleporter goes to for the elevator levels. So we don't have any letters, so I decided to use 8 for the B, so we have B1 and then B2 over there. And then on the door we have the marking of the actual floor that you're on. So we'll head over to B1 first. So of course this floor is going to be the prison room slash torture room. So we'll head over to the prison room first. So right over here, this would actually be the DARPA chief Donald Anderson's prison cell right here. You can see a very small room with some yellow lighting in here. I put this little bar across the ceiling here to kind of show that that's a vent there where Snake would normally sneak in to contact the DARPA chief. And since we don't have any toilets, I decided to use these little objects right here, this little holographic thing, to kind of be like a little sci-fi potty. So over here, this would be Meryl's prison cell. Pretty much laid out the same way. Then we have this little office section where Johnny would hang out. We have a little computer here, a couple papers on the desk, and then we have this, which is supposed to represent the laptop, which is on that corner of the table there. I have a couple lockers over here, and then we have Johnny's restroom with another sci-fi toilet. So if we exit through here, and then come all the way out to the back, we have this little wall that juts out a little bit. And then right here would be the next ladder section, which Snake would of course use this to get into the DARPA chief's prison cell. So of course, ventilation shaft here. So now if we come over here, we have this room, which of course we know to be the prison, the torture room, as well as a prison cell. So here we have the actual electric shock table, a little torture table here. So I'm actually pretty happy with how this came out. If anything, I think the table might be slightly large, but I do think that it does make sense with the size of your character in this game. But I do like how the torture table came out here. We have like the big light directly above it. And then we have these computers here, which Ocelot would normally use to activate the electrical table here. So we have these tables that go all the way around the back of the torture table with a lot of these computers on them. I put these yellow lights here in the corner to kind of represent the yellow screen that would normally be embedded into the tables here. And then now in this corner, we of course have the little sink. We have these two little lights here. And I used these boxes to kind of represent the sink. So you can kind of just open this up, put your hands in there, and then give them a good wash. And then same thing with this washroom. A little sink here, and a little sci-fi toilet. And then of course to the back here, we have these windows overlooking the actual prison cell back here. So if we come through, we have these two lockers, and then of course this table with all of these papers and these crates. And then we have the prison cell. We have a little bed in this corner here. And one thing I did here was I actually put down an autophage head in this corner, and I kind of did that to try to represent the DARPA chief's rotting corpse in the corner. It's a little bit morbid, but it's a little bit of an Easter egg there. But that pretty much takes care of the entirety of the first floor basement. We of course have a security camera right here. So now let's take a look at the armory in B2. So the one thing that you're going to notice immediately in B2 is that there's going to be a couple sections where there's ground coming up through the floor. Both of these floors, B1 and B2, I actually built them directly underneath the tank hangar. So when I designed B2, I actually ended up hitting the bedrock, the very lowest point to where you can't terraform the planet anymore. So there's some sections where the ground is coming up through the floor, but it's not a whole lot. And to be honest, I kind of like the aesthetic. I feel like it definitely fits the aesthetic of B2, just because of how down here in MGS1 there's a lot of stone walls and everything kind of looks poorly maintained. And there's a lot of rocks that you can see when you look in first-person view. But right here, I used these little structures here to kind of show that a wall has been blown open, because normally these would be cemented over walls that you could place C4 on, and then blow them open to reveal these little hidden rooms. So we have this room here with this little device on the side of the wall. Same thing with this room over here, where we have this little wall that sticks out into the middle. There would be an item normally hiding back here with this little device on the wall. So of course the armory here has 6 smaller rooms. So I guess we'll take a look at the top left room. So right here, I used these decals and then covered them red to try to represent the laser tripwire grid here. and then use some red lights to kind of represent the vertical and horizontal light beams that go across. And of course we have these barrels here, which would be used to kind of impede your progress a little bit. And then looking at the top middle room, we have these green lockers on either side of the room here. And then we have the top right room, which would have these 2 lockers in that corner. And we have all of these little devices here with these crates on the top there. So taking a look at the back right room, this would be of course the other room that has the laser grid. So of course the same thing with the decals and the lights. This would be one of the other sections where I actually place down items, because normally you would have like one big item here and then 2 smaller ones on the side once you get past the laser grid. In the bottom middle room here, we of course have these 2 lockers, and then we have a bunch of these crates. We have this little pocket right here, and then this little section here where you'd have some items hiding. Alright, so and then in this room here, we of course have these little crates right here, and then these little shelves on this side. So over here we have this door here, which would normally be a level 4 access door, but before we head over that way, we're going to go through here, which of course we have another blown open wall, and we have this little hallway going all the way down. We have these light bars that are pretty accurate to how it would be in MGS1. Right here I decided to put a window which overlooks these rocks. Again, kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier about like the rocky and kind of poorly maintained aesthetic of the second floor basement. Normally if you look down this hallway in first person view, you can actually just see all of the rocks down here that were kind of hollowed out. There would normally be like an X pattern on this wall, so I decided to use the window to try to make sure that those rocks are still visible. So we have another blown open wall here with this vent going across the ceiling. I have some green lights up here. I might change them to white, because originally I thought there was a bit of a green tint in this room, but not so much. So another blown open wall here, where we have, you're greeted with 2 security cameras, one over here and one in that corner. And then we have the vent moving all the way into the back here. So we have these 2 rooms. This would be the room where you'd find your digital camera. And then you'd be greeted by 2 gun cameras here, and then another gun camera in this corner. And then we have all of these little devices, these little generators or something in the corner of the room here, which emanate this red light in the corner, which I've tried to model as accurately as possible. And then we, of course, all of these generators are connected by all of this piping here, which would then connect into this room here. The piping would go through and then into this generator right in the corner, still emanating that red light. And then you have another gun camera right here with this little device on the wall. Then of course we have another window, doing the exact same effect I mentioned before. These rocks are visible in first person view in MGS1 here. So of course the last thing, this wall here is blown open, and this would be the boss fight room where you fight Ocelot for the first time. So of course we have all of these pillars. We would have Kenneth Baker, the Armstech president, strapped to this wall with a bunch of C4. And then yeah, you would normally just run around in circles in this room trying to take down Ocelot. And then I put some green lights in here to try to kind of emphasize the aesthetic of this room a bit more. So right here there's another bit of an Easter egg where there's actually a hand here, because once you defeat Ocelot, right in this very spot, Ocelot actually gets his hand chopped off by Frank Yeager, the cyborg ninja, and it drops right here. So it's another little Easter egg here. So we'll just exit through this level 4 door. We have this little small hallway which connects the armory. Normally there's a pretty lengthy loading time when you come through both doors. I kind of use this hallway as a bit of like a loading buffer. But that's pretty much the entirety of B2. The other thing too is that you'll probably notice some of this piping here coming out of these buildings and kind of wrapping around the walls. In MGS1, these piping up here is really small. They're almost like water lines, I think. But you, of course, can't shrink down these pipes. So I decided to just use these large pipes anyway. In terms of how they're routed, though, they're routed accurately to how they would be in MGS1. Let's see here. And of course, on all these walls, we have these little crates that are stacked up on top of each other. Same thing with this corner as well. So now we'll head back up the elevator to the first floor of the tank hangar. And then now we have this garage entrance, which leads out into the canyon. So you can see that we have these lights lining the sides of the garage entrance. And then normally when you have access to this, once this door is open in MGS1, this specific tank here actually disappears. It's almost like they rapidly assembled this tank together and then got it ready to encounter you in the canyon. But as we come out here, you can see that I modeled the canyon out here. I hollowed out this area and then put a lot of these structures, these little walls here, which have some piping which go out into the mountain, into the rock face. We have this little tank here with a lot of these pipes that kind of wrap around and snake into the mountains as well. And then it all ends here with the entrance to the Nuke Building. So this is the entirety of the first section of Shadow Moses here. The helipad, the docks, the tank hangar, both floors of the tank hangar. But it doesn't stop there. I've also modeled the Nuke Building. So at this point, I actually decided to use this teleporter to connect the two buildings together, because at this point, I was getting close to the linear boundaries of the base. So the Nuke Building is actually separated into a second base here, which is kind of still in line and in sequence with the positioning of everything in MGS1 as well. So we'll take this teleporter here and then head over to the Nuke Building. Alright, so here we are in the Nuke Building. So as you can see, decided to close off the door here since we're just going to be teleporting in. So we have this room that we start off in. We have this catwalk which leads all the way to this window over here, which you can normally overlook the Nuke Building. You can't really see too much with the window. I had to make a slight alteration here and extend this platform out, since unfortunately this game doesn't have any short walls that have windows, so you have to kind of use a long wall. So of course, we come all the way down this ramp, which will lead us into the Nuke Building. I decided to kind of keep the door low, because you do crawl under here in MGS1. So unfortunately, because this building is a little bit larger than the tank hangar, this building actually suffers from the outside weather the most, which is very unfortunate, but, you know, there's not really much I could really do about that while trying to keep things one-to-one. So I'll just go into photo mode to kind of show you guys the actual area here, because there's a blizzard going on right now. And it's going to be hard to see certain things in here. So we just take a look on the interior of here. Everything here is modeled. So of course we have all these nuclear warheads that are lined up next to each other. So in MGS1, we have these two nukes that are placed directly on top of each other, separated a little bit, and covered by this tarp. So we have these little warheads sticking out here. And then we have this warhead over here, which is completely covered up by tarp with these little crates or boxes right on the side. We have these little boxes over here as well, which would normally be covered up by tarp. So now if we take a look at the actual warheads, I had to get a little bit creative with how I was designing these. So I kind of combined like 3 different objects together here to kind of give the feeling that these are actually nuclear warheads, that there's actually a point to them here which would make contact. kind of used this flower here for the point. And I feel like overall they came out pretty nicely. The coloring is pretty close to how they would be, and then right on the back I have this little section which kind of makes it look like there's thrusters on the back of the nukes. So of course we have these structures here, these little arms which connect the nukes. And then right here we have this other cargo van right on the inside facing the exit door of the nuke building here. So much like the cargo van just outside on the helipad, you can jump back in here. Pretty much the exact same layout. And then here I decided to keep this door closed. Originally I was thinking of making this a bit of an MGS4 reference and keeping this open a little bit and having you walk outside to get to the communications towers. But unfortunately this base is actually pretty far underground. So in order to do that I would have to terraform the crap out of the ground, and I just didn't really feel like doing it. So you're going to see what I ended up doing later on with this facility. But overall I decided to keep it closer to MGS1 in that respect. And then of course we come up through these stairs, and then you have a security camera right up here on this catwalk with these little boxes which kind of block your way a little bit, which then lead to the elevator. Oh, finally the storm is gone. So we have these little walls here, we have these lights on the lower sections with these little indents in the corners, of course. So you can see these nukes are pretty big. You have these little engines on the back. So you can come underneath the catwalk. You walk through here. And yeah, you can just see so much of this facility is exposed to the weather outside. But anyways, we'll jump into the elevator now. And then, of course, I've modeled B1 and B2 of the nuke building. So let's take a look at B2 first before we jump over to B1. So now that we're into B2, this is of course going to be the office building where Otacon's room is, and of course where we encounter Frank Jaeger, the cyborg ninja. So of course we have this window over here which allows you to see the control panel, which activates the electrical flooring in the entire room. And there is an abundance of all of these yellow lights to really give this the effect that there's a bunch of poison gas saturating the area. So we have this little purification room with these vents on both sides, these fans. And then we come out into the actual office area with the electrical flooring. You can see the floor is separated from the floor from back there. So we have all of these little office rooms. Of course, again, modeled as one-to-one as possible to MGS1. Here, I put this little mini trophy here, or statue, which is supposed to represent the Moai, which is normally here. And then we have these little things on the wall. We come over here. A lot of these rooms are going to look very similar to each other. We have this little paper on the table, and these little devices on the wall here. Coming over here, again, more of these devices on the wall, these big servers, computer. And there's this big object on the table here in MGS1, which I don't really remember what that's supposed to be. But we have these little things on the wall as well. So now, before we head over there, we're actually going to take a look at this whole room over here, which is like the big office section. So we're going to be greeted with this security camera, or which would normally be a gun camera. We have a lot of these tables here with all these schematics and stuff on them, and the computers. We have these little tables here with these little white things jutting out of the wall here, with a lot of these papers and whatnot on them. So we have all of the individual rooms, and we've got some papers and whatnot on them, with these little devices attached to the wall. Same thing with here. We have all of this, again, the papers, all the computers. In this room with these crates on both sides of the room. And then we have these little tables in the middle again. So once we get to this door, we have these devices which are strapped to the wall. And then once we get into the actual generator room, we have a lot of these devices that are strapped to the floor with a bunch of piping coming up through the ceiling. We have this device here against this wall. And then we get to the actual control panel, which we would normally completely smoke this thing with a Nikita missile to turn off the electrical flooring. And we have these little electrical panels right beside it. I put up a little decal here, which I believe this is normally like a warning label on the wall. So we're going to head over to Otacon's room now. But I just really love how the yellow effect in here looks. Like every time I come in here, I feel like I have to search my inventory to put a gas mask on. So now we head into the second purification room here. We're going to hang a left, and then this would be the room where normally there would be a bunch of dead bodies strewn across the floor here. And then now we're into Otacon's research room. So of course this would be where we fight Frank Jaeger. These would be the two lockers where Otacon pissed himself. And we come over here, of course we have these windows. We have these massive servers right over here, as well as these control panels on the wall over on that side. And then of course, yeah, we have all of these tables connected to each other with all of these various computers here. And then some bookshelves on the side of the wall here. Then we have this kind of cubicle here with all of these windows all around them. All these computers on top of the desks, and these devices right next to them. I believe in MGS1 this is supposed to be a PS1 on the table, if I'm not mistaken. And then, again, we have all of these papers, this device lying on top of those schematics. And yeah, that pretty much covers the entirety of B2. So we're going to head over to B1, which is my favorite section of this whole base build here. So one thing I do have to be careful of, or, well, I would warn other people, is that for some reason, this facility, when you come through the elevator, I think it's specifically with the B2 teleporter, it doesn't happen very often with B1, but sometimes the flooring here takes a while to load, so if you immediately run off of the teleporter, you might actually fall through the floor. So it's just something to keep in mind if you do come and visit this base and check out the facility. So we'll head over to B1. So you're going to notice the immediate aesthetic change here. So we have a lot of these bronze or like brown walls here with these little wooden pillars sticking out down through the hallways here, at the ends of the hallway. So we have the women's washroom right here. This is where we end up encountering Meryl again. So we have these little tables with these chairs. And over here we would have I guess the sink with the mirrors here. We have this, which would be like your hand dryer. And then you have these stalls here with more of these sci-fi toilets and these little things jutting out of the wall behind them. And then from that point, we have this office building here, which has a bunch of office rooms. So if we come through here, we have this little crate that kind of sticks out of the wall here a bit, and then some bookshelves in this corner and some crates. Some of these rooms have windows, like this one here. So if we take a look at this room, we of course have these lockers and more of these tables with these computers on top of them and these various papers. All these walls have these little control panels on them. So more of these. A lot of these rooms are going to look very samey, but there's some minute differences in between all of them. Control panel here and some crates here, which would normally be hiding an item right in this corner. So then over here we have this room, which again has some more crates right here. control panel and some tables with a computer. We have a window which overlooks the other office room. There's like a poster or a thing on the wall normally here, so I used the Atlas decal here for that. Some papers here on this table. And then of course there's like another decal to represent a paper here on this wall with a control panel. We have this room. Get another simple room, just some tables with some papers on them and a computer. And then the final room in the office, where we have this device on the wall, and again, more tables with papers on them, and the computer. Putting these papers down definitely took quite a bit of time because there's so many of them in MGS1. So now we come down into this middle section of the room here, where we have a bunch more of these tables, so many papers on them, and a bunch of computers. This table is empty besides a couple papers. And then we have the central desk with these crates here, and these little cabinets, a bunch of papers on them. And then here. So that pretty much is everything here for these rooms. So we'll make our way down the hallway, and then we'll jump into the men's washroom. So you can see it looks very different from the women's washroom. So we have this hand dryer over here, and then this would be, I believe, the mirror above the sink. So we have these 3 stalls. Normally there would be a guy here, and you can choke him out while he's taking a piss. And then these 2 stalls over here with some little mini potties. And you can see, if you notice the flooring is kept accurate as much as I possibly could, as the colors of the floor is different on the outside here from where the actual stalls are and the sink. Same thing with the woman's washroom. So now we're going to be entering into Psycho Mantis's room. So we have these lights lining the hallway here. There is a minor difference here. I did have to put some stairs to kind of raise this platform up a little bit, just because I was running into bedrock again, and I really didn't want to ruin this room here. So now we enter into Psycho Mantis's room, and you can see it looks immediately way different from everything else in the entire facility. This is probably one of my favorite parts of this build, because I think it just looks very fancy. We just kind of pan around. We have a lot of these mahogany wooden walls here with some nice lighting. And it kind of looks somewhat comfy in here. But I was pretty proud of how this actually came out. I think this looks pretty good. Pretty good representation of Psycho Mantis's room. So if we come over to this corner here, we have this table, which would normally have a hologram on it. I think it's usually like a hologram of a couple buildings or something like that. But I decided to just use one of my discoveries of this little flying manta ray thing. And then we have some statues here. Used a Gek statue. So one of the things that was beautiful and just perfect timing was the Liquidator expedition, because we can actually get these little bug heads that we can attach onto the wall, which allows me to actually portray the thing that Psycho Mantis actually has on the wall in his room, because normally there would be like 3 deer heads mounted up here. So I just kind of did that with these 3 bug heads here in the same positions. I think that that's pretty cool. Sort of the No Man's Sky version of Psycho Mantis's room. So right here, this would be a large bookshelf area. And then the bookshelf, it does have a bit of a wall that sticks out from here. So I kind of represented that. Of course, it sticks out a little further than it does in MGS1, but I can't really stick this too far into the wall. So I decided to just keep it out like this. Then we, of course, have Psycho Mantis's table right here. You can see that the flooring is very different here once you get to the actual main part of Psycho Mantis's table here. So we have this little control panel on the side with those papers. And then we have a little laptop right here on this side with more papers, of course a chair. And then we have, normally there would be various paintings on the wall here, so of course I used these posters to represent that. And we have this side of the room, which has another statue. We have this little table here, which normally has... It has like 2 objects on the corner of them. But I decided to use these corrupted sentinels to represent those objects. And then I believe normally there'd be another painting or portrait right here. So I used this autophage decal for it. And then, of course, we have the little couches with this table in the center that has a little lantern or a little light on the corner of it here. And overall, it's just a very comfy room. And then, of course, we have 3 chairs right on the side here. So that's the entirety of Psycho Mantis' room. And for the most part, B1. So now we're going to go through here. So, of course, I put this bookshelf here. I slid it away from this wall to expose this little hidden passageway. So we can make our way down here. You can see that the roof does slope down as we get a little bit lower. You have this little pocket here, which would have some ammunition. And this is going to lead out into the cave. So I did try to model the cave as accurately as I could to MGS1. So you'll notice if we come over to this section here, there's about 2 lights on this wall. This area does narrow a bit. Then we come over to this section. We have this little pocket, which normally there'd be a crack in the wall here where you can actually see the exit door, and Meryl would be standing right next to it. We have this little pocket over here as well with this light. And then now if we make our way into the cave. So normally we would have this little thing blocking our path, which you would crawl under. If you actually do look at this in first person view though, there is actually a top section that's exposed. So realistically you could potentially climb over this, but we do crawl under it in MGS1. So I did try to keep this accurate instead of just boring a hole through the wall. So now we have a couple passageways here. We have this little pocket here, which has 2 of these lights in this corner. A very tiny little pocket on this side. When we come over to this main section here, we have another light up on this wall. I believe there's like some ammunition in this corner here. And then if we make our way down here, there's going to be this corner, which has this light over in that section. And then there's going to be 2 tunnels here. So if we go through this one, so normally you would crawl through these spots in MGS1. So you'd have this little small room here. And then going through the final tunnel, this would actually lead out to your exit. And this is where we'd meet Meryl. You can see the facility right here. And this is pretty much the end of the Nuke Building. This is where we would exit through here to get to the communications tower. But because I wanted to keep the building part limit low so that this base is still uploadable, I decided to end the base here. And I'm going to be making another base to cover the snowfield and the communications tower as well. So far, this is pretty much what I've built. This is roughly like half of Shadow Moses so far, and I do plan on building the rest of Shadow Moses at some point. So I have a teleporter here, which this basically just leads back into the elevator. So you can get back pretty easily without having to go all the way through the cave again. But yeah, if you guys want to check out this facility, I'll just put up the coordinates here. So yeah, the coordinates to get here would be bird, bird, hexagon, hexagon, sunset, diplo, hexagon, sunset, bird, face, tree, and spaceship. So feel free to plug those in and come by and visit the Shadow Moses base. Maybe by the time you guys come here, more of the facility will be complete. This is just the first half of it, and I do plan on doing the rest of Shadow Moses. I do want to do the the snowfield and both communications towers, like I mentioned, as well as the blast furnace, and also Rex's lair. And I might build Rex as well. But overall, this is a pretty ambitious project for me. I typically don't build all that often in No Man's Sky, and I definitely don't build large projects like this. This is my very first one. And I think overall, so far, it's been going pretty decently. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. This is the tour of Shadow Moses, the first half of it so far. And thanks for watching. Take care.